Hello everyone, I'm Bhavani Krishnan, a business transformation consultant at Agile Velocity and a certified Path to Agility practitioner. Today I'm going to walk you through the Path to Agility, or P2A, and highlight the key elements that make transformation truly successful for organizations. Let's start with the big picture. Path to Agility is a comprehensive approach that guides organizations through their transformation journey, not just from a process perspective, but from an emotional and performance perspective as well. In here, you see this yellow curve, and that represents the emotional and performance journey organizations go through during change. We begin with the status quo, where things are familiar and stable. Then we hit chaos and resistance, where change feels hard and confusing and most times very uncomfortable. Eventually, as new ways of working take hold, we move into integration and practice, and then finally reach a new status quo. I like to describe that as a roller coaster of change. It gets really bumpy before it gets better, right? Now, let's talk about the 5 stages of transformation that sit along this curve. The first stage is align, and this is where typically everything begins. Leaders and teams come together around a shared vision and a shared purpose and shared goals. And here's where we are answering the question, why are we really doing this? What is the compelling purpose behind this? And making sure everyone is on the same page before we really dive into change. The second stage is learn. And this is where we start experimenting with lean agile practices. It's exciting, but it's also the messy in the middle. People are learning new ways, and they're also unlearning old ways which did not work, and sometimes resisting, or more times resisting, right? And performance, as you can see in that yellow curve, can dip here, and that is completely normal. That discomfort is actually a sign that real change is actually happening. Then we move on to the third stage, predict. And at this point, teams are getting the hang of new ways of working. We start to see more consistency and predictability. It's no longer just about going through the motions of doing things for the sake of doing things. You're actually starting to deliver value more reliably, and leaders can more confidently rely on the predictability of when things can be done, when things can be delivered, and with what certainty of quality and so on. Next is accelerate. Now, the system here really starts to hum. Teams are not just predictable, they are speeding up, bottlenecks are being cleared, flow improves, and value reaches customers faster. Now, the benefits of agility become very visible here. The last stage is adapt. This is the peak of transformation. Actually, I would like to say it as the fifth stage. This is the adapt, right? This is the peak of transformation. The organization is able to adapt to change, not just react to it. Teams are responsive, customer focused, and continuously improving. And at this point, agile and lean is no longer something the organization does. It is part of who they are. And the next section here that I'm about to show, the levels of P2A, is also where Path to Agility really stands apart from many other approaches or frameworks or like a combination of that in the market. We don't just look at what's happening within individual teams, but we look across the teams, the systems, and the organization across all 3 levels. At the team level, we focus on day-to-day practices like Scrum or Kanban, just to name most common frameworks used, but also along with that, engineering practices and DevOps practices, the things that teams actually do to deliver work. At the system level, you look at multiple teams that work together, right? The flow of work across the teams, the coordination between them, the collaboration between them, basically the mechanics of scaling. And at the org level, we examine leadership behaviors, the culture behind that, the mindset behind that, and the strategy and the structure, and sometimes even HR and finance practices that can either enable agility and lean practices, or simply and silently and quietly block it. So if teams are doing agile, but delivery still feels slow or painful, P2A helps us pinpoint where the real constraint is at the team level, or at the system level, or at the leadership level, right? Or somewhere in between. Now, let's connect these with the business outcomes and look at how all of this comes together. So it's not maturity for just the sake of maturity, right? So to support this journey, Path to Agility is built on 4 core building blocks. The first building block is business outcomes, or the why, or the compelling purpose, right? So these are the big goals you're aiming for. Improving customer satisfaction, or increasing speed to market, or reducing risk, or boosting innovation. This is actually where we anchor the transformation, so it's always tied to real business impact that you can measure. The second block is Agile Outcomes. Now, this is the what. These are the measurable benefits that support those business goals. Things like predictable delivery, better visibility, and stronger team engagements. And these Agile outcomes actually translate that high level why into more tangible what do we need to improve. The third block is the Agile Capabilities. These are the how, right? These are the skills, the behaviors, and the systems that make those outcomes possible. So practices like effective backlog management and empower teams and strong cross-functional collaborations, right? So these capabilities are really the engine of progress. And the fourth block is Agile Practices, which is what you do. Now, these are your day-to-day techniques like team syncs, or story mapping, or big room planning, and retrospectives, and so on. So these visible habits are how teams build and strengthen their capabilities over time, right? So you see that it's like a honeycomb, and you see these up arrows. Now that helps you connect it all together. And here's how it all connects. We implement Agile practices to build the Agile capabilities. Now those Agile capabilities enable the Agile outcomes, and those outcomes ultimately drive your business outcomes. Now, each layer answers a very specific question. The business outcomes, why are we doing this, right? The Agile outcomes answers, what does success look like? And the Agile capabilities addresses, how will we get there? And the Agile practices helps you understand, what do you need to do on a day-to-day basis, right? So under the hood, the Path to Agility is a very robust approach. It includes 9 business outcomes, 26 Agile outcomes, 100 Agile capabilities, and more than 400 acceptance criteria that we use to assess progress in a structured, but more importantly, repeatable way, right? Now, let's look at the Path to Agility. The Path to Agility wheel shows how this all becomes a continuous improvement cycle rather than a one-time project. We start with assess here, and we use a simple structured assessments to understand the current Agile capabilities and identify the most critical areas for growth. Next, we analyze. We look at the data using maps and heat maps to see patterns and trends, where you're progressing and where you might be stuck in achieving your outcomes. From there, we prioritize. Using the Path to Agility Index, we identify a focused set of activities that align directly to your business goals. Now, these keeps us from trying to fix everything at once and instead focuses on the highest impact actions. Then we plan. With the help of a built-in Kanban board, we translate those priorities into clear, actionable backlog items. And this makes it easy for leaders and teams to organize and track the work of transformation. Finally, we act. Teams execute on the prioritized items, build new capabilities, and start to see measurable improvements in performance, predictability, and impact. Now, what makes this wheel powerful is that it's cyclical. And once you act, you don't stop. You assess again, you reanalyze, you reprioritize, and continue to iterate on this. And over time, this creates a living system of improvement rather than a one-time change initiative, right? So there you go, folks. That's Path to Agility in a nutshell, a structured, outcome-driven, and human-centered way to guide organizations through the ups and downs of transformation and help them come out stronger on the other side.